Okay, everyone, welcome to the Locked On monthly webinar. As mentioned before, I'm Luke Newton, CEO of Locked On, and I'm going to be taking you through the sort of core functionalities of all areas in Locked On. Now, we break today probably into three separate sessions where I'll pause at the end of them, stop the recording, and ask questions for you guys. So this first session we'll go through will be about how we sort of work with buyers and general clients in the system. Second session will be geared around the properties and the DNAs and the vendor reporting. And then the third session will be on our marketing around just solds and the strategy behind all of that. So if you have your questions, if you can, just hold them till we pause each session, and then you can send through your questions and I'll answer them all live for you, going over what we've got. So getting started on the first session, as mentioned, we talk about how buyers have the journey through to Locked On. And if you're a Locked On user, whether you're using us to upload to your portals or not, we'll have the ability to capture your leads into Locked On. And throughout this buyer session, I'm also going to be talking a fair bit about our triggers, which are our automation. Now, if you are uploading to REO Domain and you would like to get your leads captured into Locked On, you can contact support at lockedon.com to set that up. But for most officers that are uploading with us, you'll have this feature happening automatically. Now, I've pre-put an inquiry into the system. So when we generally talk about buyers, majority of your buyers will enter the CRM through an inquiry on one of your listings on REO Domain. I'll also show you how to manually enter people in a second to the system, which is very basic. Here you can see my inquiry that I've put in as a fake today from Domain on 8 Skinners. And that's captured into the inquiry section, which is like our qualification process. So the lead will sit here in our account. We'll see an orange dot showing us that we have a new inquiry to process. And also on the dashboard, you'll see what's on today. It will always tell you like how many tasks, how many appointments, how many inquiries you've got. You can click the options there to go to that direct part of the system. So now that I've got an inquiry here, it's been captured, and that was at 1:11 p.m. Inside our triggers that we have in Locked On, I've set up an automatic SMS and email to go to every inquiry. And when we talk about triggers, this is held in the engine in the triggers section. Now, there's not really too much that will go into great detail today of how these are sort of work and behind the scenes, but a lot of the triggers we give you with your Locked On account, all you need to do is turn them on and the rest is already set up for you. So you can see here the inquiry response. The first one I'm going to talk about is I already have active. And that is pretty much all you need to do is turn it active and you'll start getting automatic email replies, but I've added an SMS to my one as well. So at 1:11, the inquiry for Domain came in for 8 Skinners for Luke, and I've spoken to Luke and I want to add him as a client. As we're adding people in as a client, we're processing them and it's duplicate checking the database to see if they already exist. Now, before you process, you can hit the match existing clients and we already know that there's a match there. So if I hit the process option and we process my record, this will then find the match that I have in the system and it will open me up to the buyer criteria. Because we're dealing with a buyer and we're processing them, one of the first things we're trying to get you to do is start capturing what it is they're looking for, because generally we should have had a conversation with them. Now, I'm going to jump back into the buyer criteria in a second, but if I go into the summary of my client, I haven't actually had to do anything with Luke just yet. But if we're looking at what's happened with him in our summary log, we'll see here that there was an email and SMS sent to him at 1:11 email and 1:11 SMS, which is our instant SMS reply. So thank you for your inquiry on 8 Skinners. And then we had a thank you for inquiry template sent. And I can see this in the history where I have a detailed log of every email and SMS that's being sent to them. My client I use in every webinar, so it's got a lot of data to load there. But you can see here that I've opened it. We can view that and we can see this is my custom reply to that property where it's got thank you for your inquiry. It's got some custom text around it. It's got some important documents. And I've also put some buttons on there to download particular files. It has the property, the view online, watch video, and the agent's details. So a nice instant response to every inquiry. And I've also added an SMS into that from the listing agent. Now, when we process someone and we're putting them into the buyer criteria, it turns them on as a buyer, which flags them as an active buyer in your account. And now it's up to you to start putting in what it is they're interested in. Let's just pretend Luke's a pretty hot buyer. So he's got, really specific criteria. He's finance approved, and we're going to put in a bit of a detailed one here. So he's looking for 3 or more bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 cars. He would like a house or a townhouse. We can then put in the suburbs of Dolls Point. which is my test database. Now that's the area pretending that I work, and that's the suburb he wants to buy in. If they do not specify a suburb, obviously it will match all listings that you've got that are matching the above criteria. If we look down below, the next most important one that you need to understand today is the price, and the price is the most crucial. So we'll say they've got 3 million to look at. So we're typing it in. We've got 3 million, any suburb, property types, bed, bath and car, and we hit update. Now, as we're speaking to Luke on the phone, if you were sitting in front of LockedOn, there's a bit of added benefit to be doing that, is you can click on the matching properties here. You can also get to this by going properties listing matches, and you can see that there's 4 properties that match his criteria. So a little bit of dialogue around this would be, look, Luke, we've put you into the system, and based on your criteria, we actually have 3 other listings that suit, and I know you inquired on 8 Skinners, but there's actually another 3 that would match. Now, using our templates that we give you with LockedOn, remember, everything I show you is what comes in your account today. You all have the ability to use these features that I show you. You'll be able to go send, email, and you can say, look, I'm going to send you through the buy and match list, and this will send you a list of the properties that match your criteria that you may not have seen. We can see here that it's got the 3 other properties and also the one that he inquired about in the list. You can customize your message to them, but it will preload a standard one. If you make any changes here and you want to see how that looks, you can then hit update preview again for the preview to render again, but you don't need to do that. It will send whatever's over here on the right. And then at the bottom, you can hit send now and send email. And what we call this is first impressions. The buyer has had a great experience with an instant reply and SMS from you. You've called them, you've listened to their criteria, and you've told them you match more properties, and you've sent them a really nice email with your branding and colors on it. Like, for any buyer to experience that with an agent is a world-class service. So the next part is that when we're dealing with hot buyers, is that you may only have 4 properties here. Let's just say that's not enough for them. They're like, oh, I know those properties, they don't really suit. That's fine. Well, what I can actually do now is use the appraised matches. And this is something that's quite unique to LockedOn, is where we now look at the person's criteria and we say, look, here is a list of all the appraisals you have in your database that match this person. Not that you can go and tell them the address or what the property is about, but you can say, look, Luke, I know you're finance ready to go. I've got 3 or 4 appraisals that I've done recently that do suit your criteria. What I might do is I'm going to give these vendors a call and just see where they're at in their selling cycle to see if they're ready to come to market, because there might be an opportunity for you to see something that may not go to market or could be a nice off-market sale for you. So it's a really good way to reach out to vendors as well. On the flip side of that conversation is to say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, I've got a hot buyer, finance ready to go. They're really, really serious. I've let them know a little bit about your property. I know that we appraised your property back on the date and time. If you had that, it would show. If you're interested, we could possibly get them through your property if we sign up an agency agreement for a short period of time. So there is really good benefit to knowing what appraisals match any hot buyer, because these are great contact points with future sellers. So use that feature a lot when you have a hot buyer. Now let's go back into the information buyer criteria. We filled all this in for Luke. We've captured his details. He's come from an inquiry. Let's look at the basics of working with clients in the system now. So if I go into the summary, this is where it shows me a detailed time log of everything that's happened with this particular person. It'll be every appointment, every email, every SMS, every note. If I want to see all activity, it will filter to that. If I just want to see the notes I've written for them, I can filter to the notes. Now, looking at all activity, the number one rule when you're putting in a new client or property into the system, and well, it's not number one rule, it's my number one rule, is that there is no reason a new record should go into your account or any system without a note taken on it. And the notes are going to help you when you get too many records to remember who it is you're speaking to every day through tasks, which we're going to get to. So in a note, I would put in here, Luke is keen to buy, finance approved. And we can add that note. So we'll add it in as the person who's dealing with them for today's date and time. See, I've got 2 appointments in the future set up, and that's now logged. Guys, just the benefit of doing that is that you will forget people, you will forget conversations if you don't form a great habit of taking notes every time you deal with a record inside your CRM. Just a really good habit to start forming. So now that we've looked at the summary, what I will show you when we're working with clients and properties is that the best way to learn the system and to make sure you're doing things correctly is to always go left to right. So whether you're on a client or a property, you may not need to go to all tabs, but if you're new to LockedOn, it's a good thing to get into the habit of doing. So I fill in my notes on the summary. I then go into information. I look at general and I think, okay, well, what do I need to fill in here? It tells me that I'm the primary agent. And in an office with multiple users, we can open this record up to more agents if you have a locked system. Most of our clients have open systems, but if it was locked and I said, look, I need Andrew to be working with them too, I can add him. That gives him access to it. Down the bottom, our lead source is set from our inquiry. If you need to change that, you can. And potential seller, I'm going to turn off, but we're going to come to that in session 2 of today. Now, important details are what show up before I make every call to my client. So these are not your notes. So they're not like, spoke to Luke today, he was at this property, we talked about football, whatever it may have been. That's just general notes. These are really important notes. So I'm going to say he supports the Manly Seagulls, has 2 children, Austin and Harlow. And that's important because just from forming a relationship, we know is what builds, great referral systems, good relationships with people and leads to better business. But if I'm an agent and I've got a phone call coming up for Luke and I see that his kids are named Austin and Harlow, I'm going to bring up that in my phone call. One of the first things, hey, Luke, it's been a while since we had a chat. How's Austin and Harlow going? That's going to stand out in his mind, okay? That you've either got a really good system or he just thinks that you've got a really good memory. The next part is that we add in custom client tags. Now, every office has the ability to customize their own tags. When you start with LockedOn, you have hot, warm, or cold. In my account, I've put some things like VIP, hot, family, friends. I'm just going to put him in the hot list because it's, in the buyer category hot list because he's a hot buyer, and that's what I use for my tagging. And then I'm going to save this. As you start putting more and more people in the system with tags, you'll be able to go into your clients area. And in the clients database, what you'll see is this little funnel icon at the top right here. And if you scroll down that, you'll see buyer category hot. And when I select that, I've got 2 people. The great thing with tags is that when you get them right, it'll tell you how many people you've got in them. And then the bulk communication from there is super simple because you can go send them an SMS, an email, or a letter. So you can bulk communicate effectively with any list, or you can turn any list into a telemarketing list to call through by going create hit list or quick list. And this is a feature I'll show you in different areas, but it's used throughout the system when you have a group of records. And you can go in, view the first person, and click through to connect with all those people in that quick list or hit list. So if we go back into my record, going into clients, you can use the search. You can search name, numbers, emails. We'll bring up my record again. Let's go back into information. We'll look at contacts. So right now it's just one contact on this client card, which is Luke. Now he's also let me know that he has a wife called Natalie. So I don't know any of the details of Natalie, but I know the name. So Natalie Newton, if I knew the date of birth, I would put that in. And I've got my date of birth there. And I'm going to show you this with the next trigger. And if I knew Natalie's email or mobile, I'd put them in here. And it's important that if she has her own mobile and email, you attach them to her record because all bulk communication will go out to her phone and her email. The one important point here is that you can see the address is added to the top person. You do not need to add the address to the second person. You only add it to the top record. So in the edit contact, one thing I showed you there was the birthday, and there's my actual birthday, the 11th of 9th, 1984. And that's something we can store. And we would always ask you to try and get this for every client that you have as a vendor and as a purchaser, because generally you're getting their license to fill in forms, write down their birthday and store that. Because what we'll do with LockedOn is we'll show you on the dashboard your upcoming birth date. So it shows the next 30 days of, or next 60 days of upcoming birthdays in this list. Now inside the engine in the triggers, a really good trigger we created was a birthday one. And I've got this active. So what that does every morning at 10 a.m., it scans my clients to find any person who has a birthday today. Let's pretend my record was today, my birthday. It would then find the client or the contact, which is me. So this person, Luke, let this load, information contacts, and it would go send SMS, and it's going to send the happy birthday SMS. Now that's going to come from the agent who's working with that client automatically. We don't need to worry about this. Now the next part is it'll also send an email. So if they've got an email and an SMS, it will send both. And we can see here it's a happy birthday template. It's got a really nice image on it. We would suggest change that image every year. So around the first week you get back, you change your birthday image. So it's a different image every year, but it's just saying we'd like to wish you a happy birthday. Okay, it's not going to change your well, but it's another really good contact point to have with people you know that you've transacted with in your system. So always try and get birth dates. So we've been through the buyer criteria. So we understand that we fill in what they're looking for. And if that changes, you can update it. And I'm also going to show you some automatic ways the buyer can update that. And then in the documents, you can upload any file you want against the client. And this is just like having a Dropbox. We have this against the client and the property. You do more documents against the property than you do a client, but we know Luke's a buyer and he might have sent us his finance approval document just so we know we can give that to vendors that we may be selling off the market to know that it's a real person. And a formal offer is written for some other property. They're just pure examples. You can see here, you can copy the URL to these and send them to anyone. It is really like a Dropbox inside your LockedOn account. Now, as we progress into the property section, this is where we can see the listings that they match, the appraisals that they match, and we can also see the properties they own, which we're going to get to in the second session, and we can see a history of the properties that they've purchased. Okay, so we can see that there when it was settled in contract. So that's what the properties tab shows you. Now in the activity, this is where we really start to take on the buyer life cycle or journey. There's 4 main areas that a buyer, you'll work with a buyer, and we call them the buyer stages. First stage 1 is inquiry. They make an inquiry on a property. They're then going to inspect the property, and we're going to go through an inspection and using the app shortly, and that will auto add the person to the property. From there, they can request contracts, which I'm going to show you as well, how you can do that in the app. And from that, they will submit offers, and that's something we need to add. So knowing that Luke's made an inquiry on a property, I'm going to show you soon the app and progress from an inspection of a contract to an offer. But every time he makes a new inquiry, it would load here against his record. So over the course of 2 or 3 years, he may have made several inquiries on different properties. They would all be here for us to see. And they would progress through every stage and we'd see all those records there. Now, the next one is the history. Shows you any email, SMS, or any draft you saved an email to them. You can see if they've opened it and you can view those particular emails you've sent. So you've always got a history of it. Same with SMS, you can see them and the text sent. And in the task, it shows us if we have any follow-up to them. Okay, now I'll come back to tasks after we've looked at sort of the next parts of the buyer journey. So as we've got Luke into the system, we've qualified him. We know he's interested in 8 Skinner. Let's look at the next stage of automation with buyers, which is that every Wednesday or Thursday in LockedOn, if you're using our trigger system, and this is nearly like a staple, kind of an industry standard, is that you should have an email going to all your buyers every week with all of your open homes in time order, with all of your current stock, with newest to oldest, and any sales you've made in the last 60 or 90 days. So I have 24 buyers in my database, quite a small database. But inside my engine, in the triggers, I have one called newsletter on page 2. I've turned this off because this one, I don't want to be sending to all my test data. So the newsletter trigger, if I turned it on, I would activate it. In the edit option, I would select the first day I want it to send. So I'm going to say tomorrow at 9 a.m. And then it repeats every week forever. And what that actually is doing is it's then going to, I'm not going to turn it on. I'll show you how I do it, like using it, but this is what it would do every week. And it's going to send the newsletter template to all buyers, and it's going to come from the primary agent. So this particular trigger is still inactive. Let's run through what would happen tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. if it was to be on. The system will find all the buyers. It will then say send email. It will then grab the template, which is called newsletter. This is already all in your account. It has a nice welcome message, which says another great week at LockedOn Real Estate with tons of buy inquiry and some great new listings. If you have any questions, feel free to get in contact with us. We have our 3 open homes in time order, 9, 10, 11. We go into the rest of our properties for sale, and then we show the sold properties. This then gets sent from the primary agent. So if you're in a multi-user office and every agent's got 100, 200 buyers, and that email will go out from them. A really good way for them to always see their signature and their name in front of all their buyers. And then that would automatically send. So I'm not going to send that to my test database, but that's the concept, is that we do know how to set up a weekly email with your office based on when you tell us you always have your weekly open homes set. So if you say, look, all the open homes are done on a Tuesday and they're all uploaded, we would say, okay, we'll send that letter off on a Wednesday. Some people do it on a Wednesday, we'll then send that on a Thursday. Give yourself a little bit of lead time there. So that's the next bit of automation that your buyer would experience with your office. Now, the third part leading up to trying to get them to the open home, or the third bit of automation they'll get, is around the property. So we know that my test client, Luke, inquired on the property, which was 8 Skinners. And if we look in the activity, we see a full log of every inquiry. We see a full log of every inspection, every contract, and every offer. Now in the inquiry section, the system has a trigger inside the engine triggers again, which is called the open home alert. Mine's turned off again because I've got too much test data. I don't want to spam people, but we turn this on and we pick a date in your office, and generally it's a Friday morning or afternoon. And this is what the system will do. When we turn that on, it finds any property that has an open time. It will then go to the activity and find all the inquiries, and it will say send email. And it will get all of the people who've inquired's email address, and then it will remove any of them that have inspected the property. So I'm left with 3 inquiries that have not been to the property yet. It will then send a template to them, which is the open home alert. And this will send them the details of the next open home saying, we'd love to see you there. It'll give them a copy of the property, the ability to view that online and to watch the video. And again, this is something that happens automatically. Once we set this up for your office, if you're doing open homes every week, you never have to remember about an invite being sent to the right people again. That then gets sent off to our client. And I can look at this and know that these are guys in my office who work with me. So I'm going to send this off and just pretend that it's going to those 3 people. And that's being sent now to them. Again, the system does that automatically, and you wouldn't have to think about it. As an agent, you would get replies to your email saying, oh, that's great, I'll see you there. And then you'll have a copy of that email below it. Now, that's the next part of automation, but let's look at what happens when you turn up to the property. So a lot of us are very familiar with QR check-in. I'm going to show you a QR check-in before I show you our app. The QR check-in allows every agent, every office to go into the marketing, go into the open section and print the PDF, which then allows you to print this and put it on the signboard at the property or put it on the door. And as a buyer walks up, they can take a photo of this QR and add themselves to the property. So I'm going to pause here for 30 seconds. If you have a smartphone right now and you want to experience this and the automation, grab it out, take a photo of the screen that I'm on, and it will add you as a buyer to my property that we're using today as 8 Skinners. So we'll leave it there for another sort of 15 seconds. Some of you can get there and take a photo, and you'll notice it'll open up a web page and ask you to put in your name, email, and mobile. When you hit check-in, it adds you to the property. Okay, I'm going to see this on the app that I show you as well, that you've added yourself, but that instantly syncs you into my LockedOn database, and it instantly starts the inspection trigger. Now, the inspection trigger is designed to send you a welcome to the property or thank you for coming to the property SMS. And then half an hour later, it sends you a brochure of the property in an email saying we'll be in contact with you to get feedback. So I'll close that down, and that's the QR check-in. Now, if I go into the activity here and we look at inspections, we can see from today, 4th of August. Okay, some of you got in there and did that, which is great. So if I look at the start date of the 4th, there you go. A few people, they've filled in their details from today's session. So let's just pretend that none of you are checked in yet. So thank you all for doing that. But I'm going to now on the screen pause this computer and show you the app and how you use the app at the open home. So we'll just go new share. I'll share my iPhone. Okay, I've just got to get that connected to this Wi-Fi. This takes a little bit to connect. Okay, stop mirroring. There we go. Okay, so we're logging into the app now and LockedOn Real Estate. So you can download the app from the App Store, search LockedOn, and it will come up. It's quite easy to log in with your email and password. So I'm logged into my app now. They can see all my listings there, just some stats and a whole lot of features we can do. The menu, the database menus is in the top 3 dots in the top right, and I click that. And for your QR check-ins, we click the QR check-ins menu, and we're going to see the properties that are open with the time and date showing if it was today. Now, it doesn't mean if they're not open today and you want to add people, you can do this for a one-on-one inspection. You can hit 8 Skinners. And what I can actually see here is the people that have inspected today. So I can see you're all there. I can actually see that Zoe Doyle has gone one step further, which is great. You've actually checked out. And this is something I wanted to explain about the QR. When someone takes their own photo and they use the QR checkout, so they're on their own phone, they can actually then check out and they can leave feedback and notes on their own phone without having to speak to the agent. So that's the benefit of people using their own phone. Now, what I can see in this is that the rest of you are still checked into the property. So you're either walking around it or you haven't had the time to check out on your phone yet. Any of you that have still got that up on your phone, you can hit checkout, leave me some feedback, update some information. We'll see that live on my screen when we swap back. Now, let's just look at how we would use this as an agent was at the phone. You're using LockedOn. The buyer walks up. If they say, look, I want to take a photo of the QR, you can hit the view QR and show them your phone. They can take a photo of it. But we're not interested in that. What we're going to do is hit add checking. And this will then check any person in your database based on the mobile number we search first, or you can search by email, a little button at the bottom there. So I'm going to type in my mobile number, 0422 989 225. And so I'll go one step back there. You always ask the person walking up to the door, hi, great to meet you. What's your name? Luke. Oh, can I just grab your mobile number? Bam. We search it. They're already in the database. We say, oh, is that Luke Noonan? Great. Is your email luke@lockedon.com? Yeah, it is. Excellent. I'm just going to check you in. So checked in automatically. So I've done that on my behalf, and you can now see I'm in the checked in list. Now, as the person's walking around, and I can see Steve's checked out, Zoe's checked out, Jones is checked out, which is great. And I'm looking at this and I go, okay, Luke and Natalie walk up to me and they say, okay, well, we want to give some feedback. That's great. So I click on their name, and what this allows me to do is inspection feedback. I can hit edit. So as I'm speaking to them, I say, well, look, what price guide do you think the property is roughly worth based on what you've seen? They say 850. Okay. Are you pretty interested in the property compared to what you've seen? Did you like it? And we're just going to put them as interested. And then we can say, okay, if you had to rate it out of 10, what would you rate it? Now, you don't have to use this, but they may tell you. Now, the inspection feedback, we can just put in here their general notes. Really like it. Now, this saves against the property in the inspection feedback. Now, if I scroll down, that is feedback that doesn't go directly to my vendor. But if I look at the bottom, I've got vendor notes. If you're at your property and you're going to be learning about the vendor portal and you want your vendor to see these notes instantly, you can hit add note. Your note may be different to what they sort of tell you. So you're going to reword a little bit just so it's a bit nicer, or maybe not give away as much. They seem interested. Okay, so we'll leave it pretty open and then we hit save. Now, also the other notes you have here are private notes. So in this, you might put Luke drove a black BMW, just for your memory. You wanted to store that about him. So you can see all the notes there. Now, this feature in the middle where you've got send property documents is really, really cool. So inside LockedOn, we have an email template pre-built. You upload the documents to the property, you flag them as a contract. And if Luke and Natalie would say to me, look, we're super interested, send us all the information of contract brochures, etc., I can press and slide and send that off to them. And it tells me the documents have been sent. Now, if I go back to the property, here you can see all the people that have inspected. I can refresh this at any time to see who's still checked in, who hasn't checked out. And you can see how easy the app is to use. When I finish at this property, I go back into the QR inspections and I can go to start my next property, 123 Bondo Road. So we would always get everyone to be using our app as their data's in there, and it sets off all the triggers as you're using it. Now let's stop that share and let's go back into the actual screen here. And if we go to my inspections, just to refresh it, what we can see is some of you have given feedback. We can see my one at the top. We can see an icon that the contract's been sent, the 3 different feedback notes we've got, and the star rating. Now, for sending contracts in the property and the information in documents, you can see here's my files I've uploaded against it, and there's the 3 that I've tagged as a contract. Any file you can tag as a contract that will go in that send contract button to them. So I'll just untag that one. And if we're looking at the email that got sent to Luke Newton, just so you guys can see what I'm sending in the history, you'll be able to see that the buyer has received an email, which is the send property documents. The subject was property documents for 8 Skinner. There's the files that were attached to it. And if we view, this is what it looks like. Quite simple, nice one. Main thing is they get the documents for it. Okay. Now, also what's happening is based on the activity here, we can see that I've inquired, I've now inspected, and a contract's been sent. This will start the automation around the inspection. So in 15 minutes on my phone, I'll get a thank you SMS from the agent. And then half an hour after, I'll get a thank you email, which I'll show you later in the history. But as we progress through the 4 stages, let's say Luke makes an offer later that night. You record that on your buyer by going add offer. You search for the property in here, 8 Skinners. The offer will be today, and the offer amount was $850. and we can say if it's accepted or not. And in here, we can put some notes. That's going to go on our vendor report, and then we can add. Now, adding offers, very simple. That's all it is. If they make another offer in 2 days, you go actions, add offer, and this shows all in the logs against the property. But back on the property and the activity, you can see that everything is detailed against it: inquiries, inspections, contracts, and offers. Okay, so now that we've looked at the app and how the inspections work, and if we go back into Luke and Natalie's record, we've covered off a lot on the buyer there. The final part to this session is with not all buyers that you meet, because you are going to meet so many. It's the biggest part of your database by far, but only the hot qualified ones. I would love for you to start forming a habit of always creating a task to speak to them, as long as you promise to call them. So if I say to Luke, look, thanks for your interest in One Wardle, and I know you're pretty keen on making an offer. Can I call you on Wednesday just to follow that up? We go actions, create a task, and I can put in here, we can add a phone call. I'm going to select that for next Wednesday, the 11th. And we're going to put in here 8 Skinner's follow-up offer. We add. So now what we can see is that every day when you come into LockedOn, it will tell you how many tasks you've got. I know I've got 2 today. There's all my inspection triggers that you're all going to get soon, and they've got automation on them. So that's showing you all the tasks I've got due. The automated ones I don't have to touch. And I also see them in my automated tab. So for every one of you who took a photo, you're going to get the inspection SMS very soon at 2:37. So that's in 7 minutes. And you'll also get the email at 2:52. That's all added in as tasks for all of you there, which is really cool to see. So the tasks here, I've got 2 calls really. If I look at the 11th, there's my call to speak to Luke and Natalie. If I hit complete, this is something I spoke to you right at the start of this session about, was there's my important notes. So before I ring Luke, I'm going to look up Manly Seagulls. And I know they played the Sharks last week and smashed them. Or a few days ago. So I might go, oh, hey, Luke, really, Manly had a good game, didn't they? How did Austin Harlow get to watch it with you? So we're picking up key things from our important notes, but I'm also reading over the general notes that we've always had with him. Now we're having a conversation with him. And for all buyers, what you do is you add a note about last conversation. So I'm just going to put last note here. When I've finished the call, I hit reschedule, and that's where I then decide on what I'm doing next. Have I finished my follow-up with them? Have they purchased something? They don't want me to call them anymore. They just want to be a buyer in my database. I just hit complete. Most of the time with hot buyers, you always end the call with, when should I speak to you next? Or when would you like me to call you next? Now, if they say, look, call me on the 18th, one more week, I will then move it to the 18th and hit complete and reschedule. So it marks that call is completed and it books in a new one. If I called my client and they didn't answer and I left a message, all I would do is say, well, look, it was due for the 11th. I might try them again on Friday, and I'm going to move that call. So there's a few options inside your call that you will pick based on how your conversation goes or how you connect with them. But on its base level, this is databasing 101. For every new user of LockedOn, or for every person who's getting into a CRM, if you want to be quite successful and see this work for you and take your business to another level, the core basics of sales in any industry is this: you have good, clean data, you have good, clean notes, because you cannot remember every conversation with every person that you ever meet, and you always set a phone call against people that you've promised to call. As they appear in your daily tasks to complete, you take a note whether you connected or left a message, and you move that call to the next time you should speak to them. I guarantee you, when you call any good person that they have a telemarketing system, or you ring a company like a very, very big financial company, or you ring a bank or loans, they've got every single note and conversation database, and they will also have a system that tells them when they should be speaking to you next. So this is just crucial, basic sales 101 customer relationship stuff that you do for hot buyers. Not every buyer you can do that, and it depends on your career. If you're new to real estate, then do it for every buyer, because that's most of the people you're going to be meeting. But as you become more and more proficient in listings and appraisals and potential sellers, you'll only focus on your hot buyers, or you'll have a PA to work your buyers for you. But that's the core fundamentals of the buyers there. Okay, so I'm going to pause the recording now and just see if there's any questions on the triggers we covered, and also the buyer follow-up, inspections, all the way, inquiries all the way through to offers there. Okay, so part two of our webinar is looking at the property life cycle. So this is where on the dashboard, some of these numbers are all self-explanatory, but you can see here we've got 14 in the big number and 23 potential sellers. So to explain that to you, 14 is the data that's assigned to me, that's a potential seller, and 23, because I'm an admin, I can see the whole office, is the whole office data. So if you see a big number, that's how many buyers you have, and that's how many are in the whole office. You can click either the 15 or the 24 to load those. So if I click that, there's the buyers there. If I click that option, it shows me the other list of buyers. So if I refresh that, there's the new numbers, sorry, because you guys all added yourself as inspections, it put my numbers up. So looking at this now, when we're at my database, one of the key things I can tell you is that there is nothing more important in LockedOn than to grow this number. What we do in real estate is sell the asset of a home. And the more people you can meet that have that asset and build a relationship with them, the more, the better your business should be and the more effective you'll be at converting those into appraisals. So you can see here, mine is 13 and 22, and I've got 6 appraisals. Now, this number will always be larger than your appraisals. What we call this is your warm list. So people you've met, you know, they own a property, you've met through prospecting, referrals, you probably sold them a property as well. The 6 appraisals that you've got is any property you've got with a status appraised that hasn't yet been listed, and that's your hot next immediate business. And we'll work through how we follow up both of these. But the definition of a potential seller is you know them, they know you, they own a piece of real estate in an area you can sell. The key takeaway here, guys, for you all sort of remember is that every individual agent, not an office, an individual agent, should be trying to get around 900 to 1,100 potential sellers in their account. And look, even when you get a couple of hundred, you'll notice your business is just getting pretty robust, that the system is giving you more and more leads and business from LockedOn because you're working it correctly. But when you get to a point when you've got like 7, 8, 900, it just becomes ridiculous how much, if you implement the tasks and the follow-up, how much business comes from your CRM. And what I mean by that is that nothing falls through the cracks. You've got automation going out to every appraisal, every sale. You've got phone calls, letters, emails appearing for you to be in contact with any appraiser you've done, any potential lead you've met, any sale or any listing. And the more communication and contact points you make, this is something to take home, the more connections you make to your database every day, the faster your business will grow. So there's a lot of bulk things that people just think, oh, that's great. I've got 10,000 people. I email them once a month. That's enough. Well, that's not really personal one-on-one connection. It's not nowhere near going to have as much success as an agent that speaks and calls to his clients 3 or 4 times a year and has better marketing going out to them. So this is where we want you to get to, is that more one-on-one personal connections are made, whether that's through phone call, email, or SMS. So if I look at the list here, my clients, and I search our record we were using before, which is me, we got Luke and Natalie Newton. We were working with them as a buyer. Suddenly they let me know they owned a property in the area. So I ticked them as potential, and they've told me they need to sell their investment before they can buy another one. In the properties, this is a bad example. They wouldn't have any properties here if they were just a fresh person, but I do have 2 listings linked to them. So to add a property to them, I hit actions link, and now let's add a property, and let's add in their investment property, which is going to be number 11/11 Malua Street. And we're going to put Dole's Point. You can see I get a match there. I'll select that. And in the property type, I'll say that it's an apartment. Now we hit the add. This creates the property record. So we've jumped from the client's database now to the properties where all the money is made. There's nothing more important than adding properties to your database. As I said, that's where all the dollar value in your database is held. So the property is now attached as a potential against Luke and Natalie as the vendor. What we're going to be working through now, guys, is the 5 core stages of selling property in Australia and New Zealand, which is we meet potentials. I don't care how you do it. You may have lettered box drops, prospectors working for you, doing things on Facebook. Anytime you get a new lead of someone who has a property, it goes into your database and LockedOn takes over the relationship building. So we meet a potential, and our goal is to build a relationship to get invited to appraise their property. Sometimes you skip that potential page, like you're doing some good marketing and they say, come and do an appraisal. Well, you put them in and you update the status straight to appraised. From there, we build a relationship. We get to listed. You market it successfully. You guys negotiate it and it becomes exchanged or unconditional. And from there, we nurture that admin does a lot of nurturing to make sure the sale goes through smoothly, and we get it to settled and we transfer the ownership. Now, when the purchaser moves into the home, guess what? They go back to a potential on an anniversary plan, and we start the whole cycle again. Hopefully we replace for them. Hopefully we list it. It's an evergreen market of the same steps in real estate. So don't overcomplicate it. 5 core stages, if you get really good systems implemented for these, can have a massive impact on your sales career. So for potential, we've met a new lead. We know that it's an apartment and this is the address. You don't really need to know too much more about the property right now. If you can, add in beds, bath, or car. So we may say it's a 2, 1, and 1. If you know the last sold price and last date, that's going to help you. We're looking at doing a fair bit of integration with Price Finder shortly, which will, if you put a property in, go in and instantly suck in all the information that you need of that property: photos, last sold date, information, beds, bath and car, land size, etc. So that's something we're working on, which we'll have up and running this year. So when we get that information all sucked in, it's not about, oh, this property is going to sell with me soon. It's about trying to get the appraisal. So what we're doing here is we create the record and we use the actions apply DNA. All of the DNA plans we give you in LockedOn are number ordered, and they'll be all in your system from 1 through to 6. Now, there's just a duplicate there, so don't stress about that. There should only be 1. But the first plan we set is a number 1 potential appraisal. And we add that from the day and we hit apply. This then sets a series of actions that last over 12 months for us to complete and check our tasks every day to give ourselves the best opportunity to build a relationship with them. So if I look at this, the first thing is it's going to tell me to send an office intro pack. We don't know what every office has. We don't really care, but you may just send them a nice little letter, flyer, some, fridge magnet based on, this is our company, this is who I am, just wanted to introduce ourselves. The next thing is an SMS. And I haven't got any of this automated, but I'm going to show you how we automate stuff in the appraisal plan. The SMS comes up in my tasks and I can hit complete. Everything is pre-written. You can see that it's addressed to Luke. It was nice to meet you today. I'm looking forward to potentially helping you with your real estate needs in the future. Please save my number and give me a call if I can be of any assistance. We can send that off to Luke and Natalie. Okay, let's pretend I've completed the intro pack. I've put that together and I've posted it off to them. Okay, in our completed list, we can see what we've completed today. I'll go back to my property. Now, if we look at the tasks, what's the next thing we have? We have an email going out to them in a day. And that email is basically telling them that they should have an update to have an assessment of the equity they have in their home. This is what we're going to give you. It's basically just a market appraisal. Let's book that. That's what this plan is designed to do, to book the market appraisal. We then go into a phone call, just give them an update on the market. We then have an SMS, which is buyers missing out. So we just sold a lot of property in your area. We have a lot of buyers in our system that would love a house like yours. If you're thinking of having an appraisal, let me know. We've had an increase in buyer demand email. We would offer them an MA again in another month. We give them a phone call. We say, look, we'd love to catch up with you via email. Another phone call, another email about the follow-up. And then here we have a task due in 4 months telling us that they have not booked the appraisal. Then we go into what we call, an SMS, which is due as well to take me up on the appraisal. And then in the year, we have a phone call to them. And that phone call is, hi, Luke and Natalie, it's been 1 year since we first met. We did discuss about probably updating your property or giving you an appraisal. We haven't actually booked that yet, believe it or not, but I'd love to give you an update on your property. Okay, that then repeats every year forever. So all of our plans I show you have no end date. This is something very unique to LockedOn, is that when you complete this, it books in the call for next year. So every lead or every appraisal or every sale you ever make has a recurring item on it on the important date, which is the anniversary. Next year, hey, look, now, it's been 2 years since we first met. How time flies. We haven't still updated your property. Would you like an appraisal? No, guess what? Year 3, year 4, I keep calling them every year. But now they're on my database. They get a lot of office marketing from me. So we might do CMA reports. We might do yearly coloring competitions. We might do spring market updates. Like, they're going to get all of that. Main thing is here is that the agent never misses a lead that never gets to go to the point of appraisal until that person tells you to go away. You're always going to call them once a year. So really, really powerful stuff there in that. So we've got them at the point of potential, and let's just go back to page 1. Let's pretend that we've completed a whole lot of these items. We've sent them phone emails, we've sent them SMSs, we completed phone calls, and they say, look, yeah, okay, well, it's been 3 months. We actually are thinking more serious now of selling the home. We'd love for you to come and book an appraisal. So at that point, you can then update the status of the property record to appraised. and we update that. And I want to show you this on the dashboard now. If I refresh that, my potential sellers has gone up, my appraisals have gone up. And if I click on number 7, here we can see that my property is in the appraisal list, 11/11 Malua Street. So when I click on that particular property and we go into the life cycle and I book in the appraisal, we can book that in for tomorrow, 9 a.m., say it will take an hour, and book that appraisal. Update. And I can book that into my calendar. So now that that's booked in, let's pretend we've been out there and seen the client. So they want $850 for their home. We think it's worth between $850 and $875. And we also said that they would get for 2% commission, which gives you my estimated value, which is important because then we can tell you what your database is worth. We can add in any notes here about the appraisal, finish and update this. Now, once that's all saved, we then look at the tasks that are set against the person. And we basically say, well, this plan, the number 1 potential appraisal is no longer relevant. I've been out, I've completed the appraisal. I want to stop these items. So I select it all and I delete anything that's no longer relevant. Now that I know the number 1's deleted, I then go actions, apply DNA, and I set number 2, which is my appraisal follow-up. Now, when I hit apply to this particular plan, you'll see that it loads all the items here against the property. If I filter that one, and there's an automation here. Automation for 6 months time to send off a 6 months SMS. There's automation for my appraisal straight after I completed it and my testimonial videos to go to them straight after I set the plan. I then have a 1-year anniversary SMS and I have a yearly SMS that goes to them, which is telling them it's been 2 years since their appraisal. Would you love to have an update on your property price, as we do this every year? If they do not reply to that, an SMS goes to them every year on the appraisal date until they list with you, asking them for an update every year. So you can see there's a lot of automation set in this plan, and that's actually sending to me now, and I'm getting SMSs on my phone because some of them were due to go straight away. Now, going into the engine in DNA, it's important to understand that we give you all the plans, all the steps, all the templates, they're all pre-done. Okay, so there's no guesswork here. If you go into the edit option, the one thing we don't do with all the plans in your account is we do not have automated turn on as a default, because that's something we want you to send and get used to and know what content's going out. If you look at anything in a DNA that's purple or green, it has an option here to have automation on. So in my appraisal plan, I show you this with automation on so you can see how it works. That first SMS will go straight away automatically. The email will go automatically. The 6-month one will go automatically. My yearly anniversary, first year, goes automatically, and my 2-year one that repeats forever goes out automatically every year. So where we'd like you all to get to is that every SMS and every email is automated, because we know what that can lead to is that no agent ever misses an opportunity of appraisal, a sale, or a potential lead for as long as they're using LockedOn. And there's a simple question I ask here, which always sort of hits home, is like people that have been in real estate for a long time. Imagine if every sale you've ever made, vendor and purchaser, and every appraisal you've ever completed had an automatic SMS from you going out to them on the day that they sold, they purchased, or they had an appraisal, with your name, your details, asking to get in contact if they want an update or need any help selling, where would your business be? And that's just a 6-cent SMS going out to them. Now, some people have been in this industry for 10 plus years and they've sold 600 plus properties. You know, that's 2 SMSs going off every day to past purchases. You nearly could just sit back at home and just wait for the SMSs to come in saying, yeah, we're ready to sell. It just gets to a point where it's ridiculous of how easy it becomes to communicate and never lose contact with people. And the replies that you start getting, the feedback we've had from people over the years with this automation on is mind-blowing. You know, they totally forgot that this person had purchased. SMS goes out, they get a reply back saying we're thinking of selling. That's the power of it all. So we can now see the appraisals being booked in. We've got the plan set on them. It lasts for 2 years and then it goes into reoccurring every year. So you never lose contact with any appraisal. And then the client rings you up and says, well, actually, we'd love to list with you. Like, well done for the only person who followed us up. We love getting all your content. A lot of the stuff you sent us was really relevant. So at that particular point, I know that I'm going to list them. So I find my appraisal plan. I stop any more follow-up in that by using the select all and delete tasks, because I don't want any automatic SMSs or emails to go to them saying, hey, we'd love to list your property. Well, thanks for your appraisal. That would look silly. So we kill that plan. We go out and we sign up the agency agreement and we mark the property as listed. Now, I'm not going to update my property as listed. I'm going to leave it as appraised. But if we click into my properties here, let's go into 8 Skinners that we were using at the start, we know as a listing. When you get a listing, in how I'll train this is if you're kind of in an office, you generally pass the agency agreement on to an admin person who then goes into the listing and fills in the details here. So auction date, date listed, contracts received, when it's going to expire, the listing agents, any property assistants that are on it, the price, the guide, the rates, any internal things we need to know. We then look at the marketing. We put in the heading, the description, the images, the opens, and we can upload to portals. We're coming into this section. Now, when we first get a listing and it's the date that we get the signed contract or agency agreement, if admin would like to set a plan to help them have a checklist to get properties ready to go to market, and also listing agents. So if you're a single user or you're a multi-user, you can use our plan here. A lot of agents have their own check systems for when a listing comes on. We would just say, make sure you try and use ours, and then you advance that because you can edit all our plans. But here, when we go into the apply DNA, we would use the number 3, awaiting contracts. So it's instead of awaiting contracts, because that's what we do in New South Wales, what you will do is you will call that new listing. And it's basically just a checklist of everything that needs to happen when you get a property listed. So if I look in the tasks here, it's things like organize photos, keys, signboards, book the photographer. There's going to be a whole lot of other things in there, awaiting contract letters, contacting the solicitors, give feedback from team inspection. If you have a checklist of things you do with a listing right now, you need to learn how to get that into LockedOn as part of this checklist, because what we're trying to do is digitize it all so that when your team or your staff log into their tasks, it tells them what they need to do with that property that's just been listed. Okay, so that's what you set when you get a listing. Now, if we go back into that property, I just want to remove that off my test. So we will, I don't want to delete everything actually. Just clear that selection because you guys have still got some automation stuff I want you to get. The awaiting contracts, and I'll delete those. Okay, so that's one I would suggest you start setting whenever you get a new listing, just so you can experience it. Now, none of that plan is automated. It's things it's telling you to do, and you can delete them as they come up. But as a property's listed, what we actually see is that we start uploading it to portals, we start getting inquiries, we start getting inspections, contracts, and offers. And the final piece of this is during the vendor management for the listing agent is that you can file your vendor reports. Now, we suggest doing your vendor reports weekly, completely up to you. There's no right or wrong, but that's what we would suggest. And to do that, you go into actions and you hit the add vendor report. You put in the date from last week, the 28th, and I'm going to do that to the 3rd. And I fill in my summary for the activity that happened that week, the feedback from all the inspections, just the general overview, and a report summary of how everything's happening so far. And you have a few different options of what you can hide and show on the report. Now, this is what one looks like when you book that in to LockedOn. I just always change the date to where we are in our example today. So I'll just put that up to August 4th. And then there's my summary, inspection, report, and I haven't got any toggles on. Now, when you book that in, let's say that was last week's report, you can then go to the download option, which downloads a PDF, and you're able to print this and go and see your client. So I'll just zoom out a little bit. So we have the photo of the property, your logo, the agent's details on the front page, how many days on market, how many open homes, how many inspections, inquiries, contracts, and offers. It then filters to the date range and breaks down those numbers again, just to the date range, where that's a summary of everything. It tells us the main lead sources, gives us all the inquiries and the notes. It'll give me all the inspections and their notes and feedback and price guide, all the contracts, all the offers, any campaign items that were booked in that week and any payments, and a summary of the report. Now, also, if you want to do that by an email, you can hit email, which will use our vendor report email template. Open it up on the screen, and it will attach the PDF to it. Okay, so it's a nice cover email with a photo, breaks down the key stats into the body of the first email, and that will then send off with that report attached to it. Now, the most powerful one, which we want all our agents using, is the vendor portal. So if your vendor has an email address, you can go into their record. You'll be able to look at the contact and you'll be able to click this down arrow and invite them to vendor portal. Now, Natalie doesn't have an email, so I can't send it to her, but you have their email. You can put their mobile in and hit send invite. Now, the invite will send to them an email which says, "Hi, Natalie, please set up your access to vendorportal.com.au." They click a button and they create a password. Now, when they set up their password, it tells them to say vendorportal.com.au on their phone or on their tablet. And if they go to that property and on the activity, if you've turned on that they have access by clicking that, they can then log in with their email and password, and then they see this. And this is the full online vendor portal, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week access. When they log in, they see their photo at the top and all the key stats of the property. They see the notes from the last week's report. So summary, activity summary, report summary at the top. We show them every inquiry, every inspection with all the feedback, every contract and every offer. Now, guys, this is live. So if you're doing an open home and you're adding people using our app and they're checking themselves in and checking themselves out and they're, the agent's putting in feedback, the vendor can be in here and hit refresh and it will then refresh the inspections. It will then refresh the inquiries if they've come in whilst they're looking at it. Everything is live here connected to the account. So we have their marketing, we have this text for their ad, we have their photos they can flick through and approve. We also have any documents added to their property. So it's like a Dropbox for them with everything that's important to their sale of their property. They can download those. And at the top, they have the agent's details, the next open time, and the portals they're on. And they can email you from there. Now, what's really good with this is it's not just a great tool for your vendor, it becomes your most talked about tool in your listing presentations. You sit down with a vendor, you open up LockedOn on your laptop and you say, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, this is a property we just sold, 8 Skinners Avenue. This is the vendor report. And I'm going to just preview and show you what they got to log into whenever they needed. All the information was there. Our vendor report and communication with you is seamless because everything we do is inside this portal and you have access to that whenever you need. Really, really big selling point of going in and converting a vendor to choose your agency. Now, also with this vendor report, it gives you great insights because in your profile in the My Details in settings, you can turn on these two, vendor portal initially accessed and vendor portal subsequently accessed, which means you get an alert when they first set up their account and you get an email alert every time after they log in. So if I go back to my property, 8 Skinners, and the vendor's logged in 10 times at night whilst I've been asleep, and I wake up on my phone and there's 10 emails saying your vendor has accessed their portal, your vendor has accessed their portal, well, straight away, I know that they're anxious. They're chasing information. So the first call I make that morning is to Luke and Natalie Newton. And I just say, look, guys, I've just been thinking about you a lot over the night. Just want to make sure you're completely over everything that's going on with the property. Have you logged into your portal recently and just read over all the reviews and the information? Now, they don't know that they've logged in 10 times, but you're really presenting in a method that, look, we're super thoughtful of you guys and want to make sure you've got everything you need. Is there anything that you're missing? Great insights to those anxious vendors. So at this point, we have the property, your vendor reports, we're doing everything correct. You've got all your inquiries, inspections, contracts, and offers in there. And hopefully you do what you do best, which is negotiate a sale. And the property will then go into the life cycle sales advice. And again, mainly admin takes over here. So we now know that we have a purchaser. So my purchaser on this record is Dave. I'm just going to delete him. And on the right-hand side, I add my purchaser. He should be a client. So I put Dave and it will give me a match and I link him. Now the solicitors are already linked because in the life cycle sales advice, I've pre-filled all this in. This is really just dates, special conditions, and we pick our solicitors here. Your account starts with no solicitors. So to build that, as you make sales, you go into engine and the admin can add solicitors. You'll see them here. You can hit add and that allows you to link them to sales. So this is what a full sale looks like. We've put together all the dates, the information, and when the property becomes under offer, you can go into the listing and you can tick it as under offer here and save. And it's still a listing at this point. It's just under offer. And at this point, we'd go marketing portals and we would upload it as current with under offer on, and that marks it as under offer on all portals. Now, there's usually a 5-day cool off in most states. Then that will become exchanged. And the solicitor will call you or the admin team and say the property is now exchanged, which is obviously sold or unconditional. And you can put the sold sign up. In LockedOn, you update the status to exchanged. Again, your life cycle sales advice should pretty much all be filled in, but you'll know the exact settlement date, all the pricings and everything below that you already know. So what you're really doing here is setting the next lot of plans. So when you go to set a new plan, in the task, we can see that there's no follow-up for this property or all the items have been completed in the listing plan. We then go actions, apply DNA, and we set number 5, which is exchange to settlement vendor. We apply that plan. And then we go into the next plan, actions, apply, and we set number 5.2, exchange to settlement purchaser. Now, the reason we set 2 here is there's now 2 parties involved in the sale. There's one for your vendor and one for your purchaser. The vendor one is for the listing agent and the purchaser one is for the selling agent. You can see here the selling agent is Dave and the listing agent was Luke or Andrew, I think. So it does design the task to go to different people based on what happens. But this is now all set up so that we have beautiful communication through the sold to settled process with our vendor, vendor solicitor, purchaser, and purchaser solicitor. So as we're going through that process, all the SMSs, all the emails, all the tasks that your agent, your team should be doing to get this property sold and marked sold and successfully settled are in here. So every time a property goes exchanged, on the day you get the call, set those number 5 plans. So that will take you through the journey of checking your tasks every day, seeing what needs to be done. When the phone call comes into the office that the property is settled, this is the final and last stage of it. Admin gets the call, property is now settled, and they go to update status and mark it as settled. On the day that it's settled, this is where we give them the new keys and we have clients for life with anniversary plans being set. And this is the transfer property button. This is probably the nicest UI in the system and the easiest part to do and the funnest. The property sold, let's set our plans that have automation in them that last forever. We never miss an anniversary. So we answer the seller questions first. Do you want to remove all uncompleted tasks against the property? We say yes. We don't need to follow up the vendor anymore because it's now settled. Do you want to assign a new plan to them? That is your 6.1 settled vendor. Do you need to update their address? Well, this was an investment property and that's still their address, so we don't need to. If they sold the property they lived in, you should get your vendor's new postal address and update it. If we update the vendor's client tags, in your office, you may have a tag that you put on here, which is VIP. So anyone who buys or sells with me, I put them in my VIP list. And I'm going to clean this up because my vendor is no longer a hot buyer. Now, the purchaser, do we want to assign the property to them? Yes, we do. Always leave that on. Select the DNA plan, and that's going to be whether they live in or an investment. We'll say it's a live-in for Dave. Okay, now he's in one. Let's pretend he's in no tags. Okay, or let's pretend he was a buyer hot because he was a buyer, and he's no longer a buyer because he's moving into this and he's purchased a property off me. So I'm going to put him in my VIP list. Anyone who sells or buys with me is a VIP. Will he remain as an active buyer? Tick no, because he's found his dream home. Do we update his postal address to be the purchased property? Yes, we do, and we hit transfer. So now what's happening using our standard DNA plans, the property is being copied, it is being attached to Dave, and the anniversary follow-up for my vendor and my purchaser is being set. If you're a company that's used LockedOn from day one of your offer starting, you would never have lost contact with any vendor or any purchaser because all of our plans have automatic emails, SMSs, and phone calls on the most important date, the sale date. And if we go into the property now, what we can see is that 8 Skinners is now a potential, and something I mentioned to you guys at the start of this session, it's only 5 stages of the selling cycle: potential, appraised, listed, exchange, settled. Dave is now at the start of the life cycle with us. If we look at his tasks, he has a plan set against him for Andrew, the agent who sold him the property, that lasts forever. So he's got a whole lot of follow-up set against him. Okay, now if we look at this property, and I just want to show you one thing because people get confused here, which is 8 Skinners. The property is in your system twice. One is a potential, which we're building a relationship with, hoping to sell again, and one is settled, and we can see the vendor. Let's just think that it's a year down the track and you think, oh, I just listed number 10 Skinners, and you want to go and find everyone who came through number 8. This is why we keep the record of the settled property, because it's full sales history. You can go into number 8 Skinners and go, oh, there was 300 inquiries on this. I'm going to call all these people, see if they're still looking, and let them know I listed the one next door. We keep the historical information of everything about the sale and we mark it as settled. And it's kind of like you're putting the folder in the archives, but it all stays in your system with all the data linked. So that's why you have 2 properties in there. If you sell it again, you'll have it in there 3 times. You always have a history of the past sales of the property. So going into that now, you can see how important it is that for every stage, there's a system, there's a flow, there's a process. What that ties into is this, is we don't go into this as much, but it's pretty self-explanatory. The more potential sellers you meet, the more appraisals you do, the more listings you have, the more sales you have, the more tasks you have every day. There is one thing I can guarantee you all completely, is that if you get to around 700 to 800 potential sellers in your account, that means that you've sold a lot of property, you've done a lot of appraisals, you've met a lot of people, and they all should be on some sort of plan. You are going to generate around 25 to 30 connections a day to your system. Now, not all of them will be phone calls. Some will be letters, some will be emails, some will be SMSs, some will be automated. So there may only be 5 calls for you that day. But when you start hitting that critical mass of 20 plus more connections a day, there's no way your business can go backwards, and it will go forward at a pace that you cannot control. That is when you start to gear up towards getting your first PA, when you start looking for assistance and help, because you will not be able to keep up with doing your tasks that have led to you to having a very profitable and effective business. When you start falling behind on completing your tasks every day, which are important things because you know that everyone in there is a potential seller, that's when you start to think, I need help, I need an assistant, and you gear up for that. Okay, but that only comes as you start growing potential sellers. So a brand new person has no data in their account. Well, what's your job? The first 2 years of real estate's bloody hard. You've got to prospect, you've got to meet people. If you can get momentum and get flow and start using plans, then it's when it becomes really, really fun. Not, well, I wouldn't say easy. It's a hard industry, but your system will start generating you enough business to keep you going and have longevity in it. Okay. And that's what we want to see. Remember some of those key numbers, but you've really got to grow your potential sellers. You do that well, you get more appraisals, you get more listings, you get more sales. The key number one stat that if you're a salesperson, you want to make sure that you're seeing grow is that your tasks are going up every couple of months. So I generally have 3 a day now. I might have 5 a day in 2 months. I might have, 7 a day in 8 months. Come up to the first year, I might be doing 10. When we're getting to the end of year 2, we want to be seeing, 20. When we're getting past that, that's when we just run off our feet. We've got 20, 30 connections of appraisals to follow up, listings, sales. That's when you know it's all working for you. And if you're a LockedOn user and you're not seeing the tasks, then you just haven't been using the plans and the follow-up correctly, but you've got the data to go back and correct everything. And it will start to get momentum once you reconnect with people. Okay. But a nice clean database to start is a really good and easy way to track your progression as a real estate agent based on your tasks. So guys, we're going to pause it there. Okay, so the final part of this is the just sold. And why I love this part so much is that it really hits home as to why your property data is so crucial. So guys, just sold marketing, which I'm sure you're all aware, and I touch on some pretty basic real estate knowledge here, but it is the biggest ROI, best use of your time that you can do in this industry. There's nothing more an owner wants to know than a property that's sold near them and how much it's sold for and how many buyers are left over and what the interest in the area is. Every single person who owns a piece of real estate, whether it's an investor or owner, wants to know this. So how do you use your database effectively? It's always your first point of call to speak to people to let them know about this information. And we're all aware right now that things like Price Finder, CoreLogic, RP Data are presenting this information to people very quickly, okay? They're linked in with REA and domain. And as soon as you upload this property is sold, then it becomes public pretty quick. So this is why I teach you to do this. As soon as you get the property unconditional, you use your database as your first point of call. How does that look? Well, let me walk you through the steps. We go into properties and we start using our advanced find. If I'm an agent and I've just sold a property in Malua Street, which is my test database, I will go into property details. The first thing I do is I look up Malua and I search for anything that I have as a potential that I've appraised that's come off the market, and I hit apply. And that tells me in that street, I have 9 future sellers. So this is a great example. I got a street here with 9 people I know that own property in a street that I've just sold. So with this, I now start to use my hit list. I go actions and I create a quick list. A hit list is one that you can save, and we have some tutorials on this, but a quick list means you're going to do the calls now. When you're doing just sold calls, it's literally on the same day you get the exchange call from your solicitor. We don't want anyone else to get the opportunity to tell these people that it's sold, and we generally try and do it before we put the sold sign up, if you can, okay? This is just added benefit, and I'll show you why, because it's so good in your script. So when I look at my first record, I go actions, view summary, and I open up the first record. I can see this is Luke and Natalie Newton. So just let me change the vendor on this, sorry, just so it makes more sense. I've got myself linked to a few. Okay, so we've got George here. And as we have George on the system, we can see that I'm going to call him and I can look at his record, and it's an appraisal. In the life cycle, I have all the information about this record that I can click around and review as I'm dialing his number. I can also click on his vendor record and read over any notes that I've got on him, or look at his buyer information, whatever you want. But you can get back to his property by going into the vendor section and going into the one that we're calling here now. So when I look at this particular property and I ring George, he picks up the phone and say, George, got some great news for you. We just sold the property in your street. You've probably seen the sold sign coming in and out of your house every day. We haven't even put the sold sign up yet. You've probably seen this for sale sign. Sorry, we haven't even got a chance to put the sold sign up yet, but I wanted you to be one of the first to know that we just got a record price on that. And we sold it for 850,000. I know that we appraised your property back in the 5th of August, 2021. So this is a bad example because it's actually tomorrow, but we appraised your property back in 2020 and we put 850 on it. The market's come up dramatically because your home is actually a bit bigger and better than the one that we just sold. We've got a lot of leftover buyers. You know, at that time, I'm just reading your notes, you weren't quite ready to sell. Has anything changed over the last year? Knowing that prices have gone up, would that interest you and maybe having a few people through? We're trying to educate, first of all, them on the sale price. That's the main purpose on the call. And then we gauge how it's going to see if they have any thoughts of selling or if that sparks any interest to come to market. So the first call's made, and then we go to the next call. Again, this is a potential. It's Andrew Smith. I don't have any notes on him. You would if it was your database, but I can see that he paid 1.1 for it back in 2004. This is all fake data. So I ring Andrew. I let him know that we have buyers come through a property. We just sold it. We haven't put the sold sign up. I want him to be the first one to know we got a record price for it. How does his house compare to it? Well, you ask him. Would he like to have an appraisal? Because he hasn't had an appraisal yet because he's just a potential. Okay. If he might not want an appraisal, has he had any thoughts of selling? Now we're ringing through 9 people. I can't hear you guys talking to me, but I'm sure you're all nodding your head going, these are the best 9 people that anyone could have in their database to speak to about a property that's just sold. If you don't agree with me, send me through a chat or a question, okay? Because these are high conversion, high value calls to make. I speak to the owners of the same street, let them know the property sold before the sold sign's up, if I can. Look, it doesn't happen always the time, but I would highly suggest you try and do it. Now, ideally with the just sold calls, we want to make 15 to 20, 25 calls if your database allows you to. My first street had 9. Now I go into my property details and I search the next street. Now the next street next to that was Skinner's. And I then search for anyone who is a potential, appraised, or taken off the market in that street. And in that street, I have 2 people. So now I'm going to call another 2 using my actions quick list. The great thing about these just sold calls, guys, is that they're super easy, they're super fun, and you get great momentum with them. It's nowhere near cold calling. And you'll find that you're chirpy, you're happy to make these calls, you really want to speak to these people, and it's so easy. And with that, people can feel it on the other end of the call. So that's what we want them to experience, that you're the agent that tells them about every property that sells near them before even the sold sign goes up. Now, on top of that, the second part to your just sold as an agent is that in the properties, we go into this and we search the property details for the suburb. So my suburb is Doles Point. I finished my calls and I can do this a day after or when the sold sign goes up, generally give it a break. But in the appraisals, potentials, and my taken off the markets, I search the whole suburb. Now, if it's a great sale and it was an apartment, I can search just apartments. If it was a house, I can just search house. You'll know your data based on the numbers you're getting. My database is small, so I just want to show you this on a whole. I've got 12 properties. Pretend it's 120 in Doles Point. I know that it's a good sale, and every sale, whether it's good or not, I'm going to get out to all of the people in the area. So I hit send SMS, which gives me a list of all of the owners and their mobile number. I then go into the template and I pick a just sold template that we give you 1, 2, 3, or 4. I use number 1 and I pick the property that we just sold, which was 8 Skinners. I then update the preview, and to all of these 5 people that I have a mobile number for, pretend it's 50 or 500, they're all going to get, hi, Andrew, great result. We just sold 8 Skinners Avenue, Doles Point, around the corner from the property you own for 1 million. Call me for more details. Guarantee you are going to get some amazing replies to that SMS. Guarantee it. Well done, mate. Let us know what ours is worth. How many buyers are left over? What's the market doing? Can we get an update on price? All those type of replies will come back to your phone. Now that comes from your number, goes out to all of them, and you wait and see what happens when you start actioning that just sold process into your business. So the just sold process hopefully has hit home, because it's only as good as the data you have in your system. If you're a user that's not putting in every potential seller, you're not putting in every appraisal, you're not transacting every sale, then you're robbing yourself of the opportunity to do the biggest return on investment, easiest calls, best marketing you can do in real estate, which is speaking to people about sales. If you're new to the industry and you're building a database and you haven't got any sales yet, Call the people in your database about other agent sales. Oh, look, Luke and Natalie, just want to let you know there's a sale around the corner from you. You may not have seen the sold sign yet, or the agent might not have yet called you, but I just wanted to let you know, as the area expert, I'll keep you up to date with anything that sells in your area. So it doesn't have to just be your sales. Really depends on where you're at with your career. But I guarantee if you're an agent with 800 to 900 potential sellers, 30 connections a day, you won't have any time to worry about what your competitors are doing. You'll just be doing it with all your own sales, and you'll be flat out. Okay, guys. Well, that brings us to the end of our Locked On session today. It's been a real pleasure having you online with me to go through those core functionalities of Locked On. If you have any questions from here on in, I'll stop the recording soon. You can send them through, but we'd love to see you on this webinar every month. You can always register that in the training section. Register for it as many times as you want, the first Wednesday of every month at 2 p.m. And we'll cover off on all of those core functionality. So it's great for your new assistants, refresher, new staff. It was a great overview of Locked On there. All the big new features we'll launch, we will do as webinars for themselves, and we'll send out YouTube video on those. But again, guys, been great having you on. I'll put this up online on our YouTube channel on Friday, so you can rewatch all of that. If you need any assistance, you can use the help option inside your Locked On account, or you can email support@lockedon.com anytime. All the best, guys, and have a great day. Thank you.